Look forward to a great conversation today. I'm going to cover some great content around predictive analytics, and most importantly, I'm interested in getting everyone's thoughts and questions. So we'll jump into a little bit of logistics here around the actual event, and we'll jump into the content. The goal today is very much to sort of introduce the concept of predictive analytics and how that applies to B2B marketing. And give me 1 second here, I'm having some slide issues. Especially around using predictive analytics for lead scoring, doing some other things that you're sort of already doing if you're using marketing automation. If you're not using marketing automation, then it's definitely on the hit list of things that is the value the product brings to you. So I'll talk a little bit about how we're doing this here at Salesfusion, broadly kind of what predictive analytics is all about, and kind of how you can get started using it. So me, the first bullet point here says I am the Vice President of Product Marketing here at Salesfusion, and here's my contact information if you'd like to reach me on Twitter or reach me via email. I'm happy to continue this conversation in either of those places, or if you just want to do a one-on-one afterwards, feel free to reach out to me. We are recording the event here, so it will be available for playback. I definitely appreciate everybody's time today, but if you have to drop off, do know that this will be available for playback. Questions, again, very much interested in them, and any question is well received, and you can use the actual GoToWebinar interface there and just type your questions in. I'll be keeping an eye on those and either answer those as we're in the presentation or at the conclusion of it. And then, of course, we'd love for you to share your insights from here on Twitter specifically. So we're at Salesfusion, or you can use the hashtag Salesfusion to share your thoughts, reactions, questions, whatever it is there as well. We'll be watching that and work that into the dialogue today as well. So just real quick in terms of why we as a company are talking about predictive analytics, which is sort of a large phrase to describe optimization and intelligence in a platform like a marketing automation tool. So we are very much focused on smart marketing automation. We think smart is based on doing some things around making these products easier to use. So you'll see the word simple here, anticipating the things that need to be done and wrapping those around best practices and domain knowledge, which is the prescriptive element of our strategy. And then more importantly, I think to today's discussion is to use data and to use data science to predict, or at least give us indications of where we're spending our time, where we should be spending our time, what's working, what's maybe not working as well as it needs to. And so, broadly in marketing today, there's a sort of a sea change going on around quantitative analysis and measurement and metrics, and so we're very much in tune with that, but we also very much want to make it approachable and understandable for anybody who's in a marketing role, who's just out there trying to understand how all this stuff works for them. The actual Salesfusion platform, as you may or may not know, is very full-featured marketing automation. So we do everything from lead capturing and forms and landing pages through to integration with CRM systems. We do event management, GoToMeeting, WebEx type stuff, as well as a lot of the things that take place in between there, lead scoring being part of that, email nurture flows being part of that as well, the logic that takes someone down through the buying cycle. So a very rich and robust product. Where we have focused initially with the data aspect of this in earnest around applying predictive analytics to our platform is in the area of lead scoring. Lead scoring is, as many of you may know or are interested in knowing, it's just a matter of prioritizing sales leads for sales pursuit. So if you get 100 leads in a day or 1,000 in a week or whatever it is, they're not all created equally. And this is about using actions, behaviors, events, whatever it might be, to prioritize those, right? Separate the wheat from the chaff, or whatever metaphor you want to use there. But ultimately about better utilization of sales time, better quality in terms of the sales leads that are being generated by marketing departments, and then essentially more harmonious relationship between sales and marketing going forward. So, just to frame this and to sort of have a common definition around predictive analytics, I went to the essential web resource, Wikipedia, and I pulled this, and I think this was good because it did sort of, in a lot of words, but essentially explain what it is we're talking about around this. And so we're talking about modeling, we're talking about machine learning, we're talking about data mining, right? So maybe a little more sophisticated concepts there, but it's how do we take the stuff that we have, the data we have, organize it, sort of analyze it, and sort of put it in context for our purposes. And that's what we're doing here is we're analyzing it, but based on sort of what we know, the historical facts, what's happened in the past, in order to make some type of informed predictions about what's going to happen in the future. And that's very much where we have started in our overall product approach around predictive analytics is definitely has a longer vision, which I'll get into a little bit. But out of the gate here, we're very much focused on saying, look, we can use data and we can use what we know. We can use how people behave on websites. We can use how people have behaved in email campaigns, how people have consumed and shared assets like white papers and any other type of download. And then map that to people that have become our customers, right? You look at the sort of successful conversion of a customer, and then say, okay, great, people that became our customers, like what did they do in this buying process? And then who in our prospect universe is tracking that direction, right? So in other words, you're just sort of looking for a lookalike in the data set. This gets into a little bit of the meat and potatoes of how this is working, but I think it's important that this isn't just sort of pie in the sky, hey, we're doing some machine stuff in the background. It's a very pragmatic and sort of quickly value-added approach to saying, look, this is very relevant to you as a marketer, as a salesperson, as a business, because we're going to apply the techniques that we have here and the engine that we have, but it's going to be based on your data and your results to get back to one of the core promises of marketing automation, which is around prioritizing leads and prioritizing sales opportunities for sales pursuit. I spoke a little bit about data and the importance of it, and so big data, or whatever the phrase is today that you'll read about in no shortage of publications, definitely seems to be all the rage. But if you think about the sort of heart and soul or the heartbeat of a marketing automation system, what we're essentially doing is we are going through and we are logging, recording, reporting on, stringing together, if you will, for a unified prospect view, all of the actions that someone takes as they go through our funnel, right? So they came in and they looked at a web page, and then they came back and they finally told us who they were, and then they downloaded a white paper, and then they got an email and they opened that email and they clicked it, and then maybe they came to a webinar like everyone is doing today. All of those are events, and there's multiple of those events that can happen as someone moves from sort of an unknown opportunity, an unknown prospect, to a known prospect, to someone that becomes a forecasted sales opportunity, to someone who eventually becomes a customer. And what's great is that, again, uniquely positioned in this world of swirling of data that's out there, we have this sort of real clear understanding and real clear view of the things that have happened to make someone become your customer. And I think that's super important and a real unique way to kind of come at this. As we broaden the information and the data that's available, we also have a whole lot of things that inform us about this particular prospect or this particular customer in this regard. So think about this as beginning to build kind of a unified customer profile. And we obviously have people's contact details, we have company names, we have demographic, we have a lot of the standard sort of information that exists about not only that person, right, but about their company, where they work. Everything puts off, companies put off signals these days, right? Their websites, how they're broadcasting themselves, how they're sharing themselves. And all of those things can also be knit into building out this customer profile. So we take customer actions, the things they did when they actually got engaged with us, and then we also utilize the things we know about a particular customer. And then as we go forward here, we can then enhance and we can continue to sort of broaden our view of who should be our best customer by going after sort of more public or web or social-based information. So these are listings, and these are social profiles and footprints out there of the types of people that are of interest to you. And again, everyone's sort of explicitly sharing this information about them and how they're positioning their company or their products. So when you take this kind of in totality, one, there's no shortage of it, but two, it's also very key in terms of how we organize it to make it sales actionable. And again, I'll go back to, in the top left here, right? We have this really unique way to sort of filter and understand the other two boxes and their importance based on the things that have actually led someone to becoming a customer of ours. So I think that's definitely an important point. I did get a question here, so I'll go ahead and answer that one and encourage everyone, if you've got questions at this stage, to definitely to serve them up here. So this is from Melvin. Melvin, thanks for the question. How can predictive analytics help in B2B relationship building between buyers and suppliers? What specific information is needed for the analytics? So make sure I answer this question, Melvin, which is correctly, which is basically all you have to do in the scenario of Salesfusion and us being able to put into place the predictive lead scoring that we're talking about here is just to set the product up, right, and begin to capture the information. The sort of the automated scoring happens kind of behind the scenes, right? And so what you're going to do is you're just going to see the output, which is going to be a rating and a ranking of your best leads. It's a good dovetail into the next couple slides here, which compares traditional manual point assignment with more automated or predictive lead or score assignment related to lead scoring. So if that doesn't answer your question, Melvin, or if I'm not about to, please keep me honest here and hit me up with another one. But what you do see here in front of you is what has been sort of the norm in this industry since it sort of came to light, and the way that we've gone about working to prioritize good sales opportunities from not so good ones, right? From the best leads versus the ones that aren't as great. And we've gone in and we've sort of isolated it down and said, hey, here's the core activities, right? And what from these core activities, I'm going to assume, right, this creates a customer profile, and I'm going to assign some scores, right? I can assign points, and there's a totality of points, right? Points add up, or I can do negative points for certain things. I think what's important here is that this is not the easiest thing in the world to do. It requires a lot of good thinking. A lot of times it is either arbitrary or becomes very much just sort of based on opinion, right? Because there's best practices, guys. There's all things you can do, but ultimately what you're trying to do here is you're trying to say, we think, take the example to the right here, we think that someone requesting a demo is worth, 20 times more than somebody opening an email, right? Look at the email open is number 5, or is 5 points, and the demo request is 100. So that makes sense, right? Clearly somebody requesting a demonstration, you would think, is definitely someone more engaged and more interested. But you sort of put these point values out there, and then you sort of say, okay, great, now we've got the system and we're creating scores, and then you try to tune, correct, maybe, on an ongoing basis, and it gets a little bit kind of like driving a car down the road and swerving and then trying to overcorrect, and you never quite get back on a straight line. I think also you're defined here as like the fourth bullet says, is that it's easy to miss the most important behaviors because you didn't think of it. It's pretty easy for us to say, hey, here's the 1, 2, or 3 things that we think are important, or here's, hey, the most important page on my website happens to be my pricing page. When quite frankly, and we've seen this in some of our initial customers, that actually a bigger influencer of someone becoming your customer is the time they spend on your About Us page or your management team, because they've decided to do business with you and they want to know what you're all about. And so those don't always get the preference or the treatment or the priority, let's say, that pages like the demo page or the pricing page get. So I think those are some keen insights that can kind of come out of this. The other is you've got to continually refine and refresh this. As your content changes, as your customer changes, as your marketing programs change, and you've got to have a way to constantly inform the scoring model, not only just based on what you're seeing as a marketer, but even sales results. And are these scores actually translating into the best leads and the ones that convert the best? And are we really achieving the productivity gains that we want to achieve by implementing this type of scoring and prioritization model? So we still very much believe in this approach. I think it takes some planning and some analysis and some understanding. It's still very much part of our product. But what we really wanted to do, and as we looked out in the market and we talked to our customers and you talk to analysts, and depending on the report you read or the analyst you talk to, if 30 or 40% of the people that are using marketing automation today are actually effectively using lead scoring, that's 60 to 70% out there that are just not seeing what we believe is one of the core value propositions of marketing automation, which is prioritize leads, right, and using the information we're capturing to help sales be more productive and eventually, right, convert more customers. So that's where we came to the table with predictive lead scoring. And what predictive lead scoring is this automated ranking. So you don't have to do anything other than act on the results, right? So if you're an existing Salesfusion customer, we're definitely very interested in helping you get set up on this. So contact me, and I'm happy to get you engaged around getting this set up. And if you're interested in this type of thing, we'd love to talk to you about it. because what happens is you just sort of, if you're starting from scratch and you don't have any prospect details, there is a setup period, if you will, that we have to begin to gain some data to begin to accurately score things. But it does not take very long, and you're going to or not instantly, but you're going to eventually see results, but you don't have to do anything to really get those other than, again, start using the product. So that's important, right, that they're automatically created. And I think the other essential point here is that they are constantly updated and informed over time. So as you go about your daily business, your marketing campaigns, your sales activity, your closing activities, you're bringing new customers on, the system is going to learn from those activities. It's going to see who gets to the greatest probability of close in the pipeline. It's going to see what activities were taken to get there, right? The pages that were viewed, the email campaigns that were acted upon, the collateral that may have been most influential to them. So it certainly informs marketing process. But also what happens is there's no sort of, hey, let's do the monthly, quarterly, weekly, tuning meeting. It just happens over time, and what we've built into the product, and I'll show you a screenshot in a little better detail here soon, is the ability for feedback, right? So literally, if anybody's ever used Pandora or any sort of upvote, downvote type of product, you can basically tell us, we're going to tell you based on the data and based on what we're seeing, we think this is a good one. If it's not, or if you disagree with that conclusion, you can participate, which means you can actually say, hey, I want less like this. And that, one, gives us a feeling of satisfaction that we can do that, but also it informs the filter that, right, this is maybe one that's essentially a negative training event as opposed to a positive training event. So we thought that was a big part of this. We know this is a big part of this in terms of improving the analysis over time, and so that's why we built that in the product. So like I said, this is the types of things that we take a look at, and ultimately what we're doing here is we're creating a customer profile, right? Is that here's, we're taking a look at the people that have become your customers, and then we're looking at those that are currently not your customers but in your prospect universe, and we're tagging them to say, hey, these are the ones that are most likely to become your customers. So again, it's this promise of prioritized and identified and sort of, the best leads are scored accordingly based on their behaviors, but the amount of work that you as the marketer have to do, or you as the company have to do to get that value out of it, has pretty much been almost totally removed. So something to think about. Again, we'd love to show more of this to anybody that's interested on the phone today and get you up and running on it. So feel free to ping me, and we will do that. So this is sort of the ultimately let's get it all together, and we've got our lead scoring running. We've got engagement going on. We've got nurture mails going on. We're doing good content. We're running our reports, and yeah. So what we're doing is we're pulling from the top of the funnel, which is we're driving people into our product, and then we're able to nurture those people through the cycle. Here at Salesfusion, we integrate with lots of different CRM systems, and definitely have the ability to not only surface this predictive lead scoring capability within our app, but also we can drop that into products like Salesforce and Dynamics. I'm sure you'll see here in some of the other ones. And because, again, what we're working to do is make this sales actionable, put it into the rhythm and the flow of the sales team, give them some context and some understanding of, hey, these are the ones that are viewed as the best, not because of, again, a sort of an arbitrary or sort of a guessing point-based model, but more like saying, hey, we're using our own conversion data to inform this process, and this is where we see, the greatest opportunity for sales engagement and conversion. So as that works and as it comes together, everybody's happy, right? Marketing is actually surfacing the best leads. Sales is actually converting more, which makes them very happy, and the company continues to be successful because revenue is going up and customer acquisition is increasing. This is the very sort of highest level possible slide about getting started, but I did want to structurally kind of talk about how this happens. And so I think I'd mentioned this earlier. If you're an existing customer, what you'll do is essentially let us know you're interested in this. We have existing prospect data from your account. We can begin to sort of tie everything together, quickly build out a data model, and then put that into production, right? So if you're sort of starting from scratch, we do have some thresholds. We look at this as maybe a 30-ish day process to sort of get a model built, to begin to yield some results. I'll show you kind of how we step you through that here in a minute. But it's, again, important that since we're learning from the activities that lead to a successful conversion, we have to have some reference point back to what led to a successful conversion. So not a huge amount of heavy lifting, but this is sort of the sequential process you go through. Here at Salesfusion, when you become a customer, we take you through a sort of a 60-day onboarding process, and this is knit into that process. So, just one, it's sort of happening as the product gets enabled for you, and then as we step you through the various steps to get set up on the product, the most value out of it, the predictive lead scoring will surface as a lead profile, and you can begin to do all sorts of things with it. So intentionally a very high-level slides. Again, happy to dig into this. What I won't be doing in this presentation is sort of getting into the actual nitty-gritty of how the calculations run. But I'm happy to sort of do that or bring other members of the team to the table to talk a little bit more about that if that's something you're interested in. So as I mentioned, what we do when, auto forward here. When we take you through the product is take you through sort of an enablement and a setup sequence where you'll quickly be able to come in. It's a nice wizard-based approach. You'll be able to connect into your CRM, tell us what the fields that are most meaningful. Pretty straightforward way to do it. It's a one-time deal. Again, this happens in parallel with our onboarding process. And then what we're going to do is we're eventually going to surface, here as you'll see, this is a little better screenshot of the results and how those results are going to appear for you. And you'll see here the upvoting and downvoting, right, that can happen, star assignment, a point assignment, some of the other things that look like sort of a more of a traditional approach. But what's happened here is that you're generating these results without having to actually go through and set a model up and tune a model and potentially, overcompensate or undercompensate, or think about what happens if somebody gets too many points as you kind of go through that setup process. So I'm going to pause here for a couple of good questions that have come in. Thank you, everyone, and remind you again that would love to handle more of your questions, so please keep them coming in. So Tricia, thank you for your question in terms of how long does it take to build a model. Again, this is going to be based on a variety of factors, right? We do work to have that parallel kind of with our onboarding process and want to kind of get that done as fast as possible. So, the short answer is within that 30 to 60-day onboarding process. The longer answer is probably need to take a look at the amount of data that you either currently have or could have available and how quickly that could come to pass. And then make a better forecast or estimate on that. But I think the bottom line here is this is not a, this is not a months and months and months and months and sort of waiting for the payoff type thing. As soon as we have a level of confidence that we have a model that will work for you, we'll begin to produce results. And then that model gets better, clearly, as it's used and as more activities take place. So thank you for the question, Tricia. Hopefully that answered it. If not, ask me a follow-up here or feel free to follow up. Good question, Craig, here. In what cases would you upvote or downvote a lead? Why would someone want to go against the predictive model, and how does that feedback affect the model? So this was sort of just part of how we wanted to build this into our product for two reasons. One, we think that it's very important to sort of continue the flow of information that exists between a marketing and a sales team. And feedback, obviously, very important to that in terms of the quality of the opportunities and of the leads that are coming. Instead of it just being sort of hallway conversations or whatever it might be, this is actually a way to say, hey, I'm going to give you actionable feedback, and that actionable feedback is in the form of, hey, this was an awesome one, so give me more like this, which essentially would be an upvote, or hey, this one wasn't as good as maybe the model predicted, so I'm going to downvote it a little bit. So there's the feedback mechanism, which is important, but what's going on underneath the covers here is that each of those actions is essentially helping the algorithm work, and it's saying, look, if you upvote something, you're saying, man, this was a really good one, so we need to find more like this. There's a bunch of stuff that goes on when we look at the structure of that particular lead and the events that led up to that lead, and some weighting that eventually happens more towards those that are upvoted. And then conversely, those that are downvoted will get analyzed, and the weighting that goes on to the attributes that are affecting that particular one will carry less weight over time. So that's my quasi, I guess, technical answer to that. I'm happy, Craig, to have more conversation about that, because I don't think I totally answered how does the feedback affect the model, other than the fact that it's just a way to say, look, this is not totally static data. As we go forward, we'll continue to add information about prospects and their activities, but also there's going to be, outside of the sort of information we're collecting in the product, there's going to be selling activity that goes on. There's going to be some other things. And the other thing is I think it's important just to have expectations correctly set around these things. So we're not saying that these are guarantees, right? What we're saying is that based on historical patterns and historical patterns that have led to customer conversions, that the ones that we're surfacing here at the top of the stack are most likely to become those. So there's still a whole load of variables, right, in terms of how you sell, when you sell, right, all those different things that kind of come into it. But again, our goal is to sort of, again, focus on delivering on one of the promises of marketing automation, which is ranking and prioritizing the best leads at the top to get sales focused on the most highly probable opportunity or customer or leads, essentially, that can become customers. So a lot of words there. Sorry about that. Let's see, Gavin. So good question, Gavin. How do you automatically account for overfitting? Might need some clarification on exactly what you mean by overfitting. If this is a way to say, look, there's going to be some that totally bubble up based on, or an outlier, let's say, someone who has had massive amounts of activity. And you'll see this in traditional lead scoring models, right, where a page gets 50 points and the same person comes back to that page 1,000 times. Then what happens is that score goes way, way up, so then you're forced into situations to have thresholds, and you're supposed to have negative scores and degradation and some other things. The way we're coming at this is to say, look, what we're generating here is a customer profile, and we're saying these are the customers, or these are the opportunities, or these are the prospects that most likely resemble customers for you. You can then take a look at that and decide what you want to do, right? So you can totally take these things and drive them into, I guess my next slide kind of gets into some scenarios here, right? Like one of the most effective reports you can run in your CRM system is a leads by score report, and then sort that by lead score, right? And then sort that by last activity. So you get this view of who scored the highest and who has had the most recent activity, right, with me. I think that's a good view, or a great view of this type of thing. So that gives you quickly very actionable stuff through a sales lens. So you may be only interested in the stuff that's been, active in some way, shape, or form on your website in an email campaign in the last 5 days, last 10 days. Well, there still are people that have been identified as being your optimal customer profile that maybe haven't had that activity in the last 5 days. So then that's about, okay, great. So maybe this is somebody who maps to our customer profile, but we haven't had activity in for quite some time. So maybe what we need to do is we need to target them for a marketing campaign, and it's a re-engagement campaign to get them back into the fold. So every company is going to be a little different, I guess, in terms of how you want to use these prioritized and ranked leads and the lead scores that are being generated from them. So I think the leads by score report's a good one. You see it as the first bullet under the sales subheading here. You can view it in our app as a call down list, right? Go ahead and just sort of set it up and say, hey, these are the leads that Salesfusion is saying are the best, so I'm just going to work these things end to end. The other is to create email alerts. So the stuff you're kind of doing now, again, around traditional lead scoring, you can very much do utilizing the predictive lead scores through the sales lens. From a marketing standpoint, I think there's a couple of great points here. One, obviously, to say, look, if this isn't based on time or based on some other attributes, maybe not something we need for immediate sales pursuit, but we want to put them into a targeted email campaign. You can segment and build a list based on that. You can also, through Salesfusion, create a nurture flow, right? So anybody who is of a particular ranking, goes into a dedicated nurture flow, and you could do that as those that are sort of, we have sort of 3 levels, right? But those that are ranked at the top get one flow, right? Those in the middle get another flow, and those at the bottom get another flow, or not, right? Depending on what you want to do and how you want to do it. But all those things are super important in terms of, using this type of information to engage your prospects. And then the other really interesting thing that falls out of this from a marketing standpoint is that you do get visibility to the content, the campaigns, and the actions that are actually leading to customer conversions. So then that can inform a lot of things, right? That certainly can inform how you're structuring pages on your website. Back to my earlier example of, we may spend a lot of time on our demo and pricing page, but not enough time on our About Us page, or maybe we need to spend some more cycles on that. Maybe there needs to be better calls to action on those pages. How are my email campaigns actually performing as it relates to customer conversions? So thinking beyond opens and clicks and those sort of traditional marketing campaign metrics, and more towards sort of outcome-based metrics. So I think there's a huge amount of stuff that you can do as you begin to operationalize this, well beyond just now having an easier way to do an informed prioritization around sales leads. So good question from Tom here. I'll take this one, and again, encourage everybody to continue to ask questions. It says, if I understand correctly, we initially populate profile data and the system then automatically adjusts scoring based on activity. So the way this works, make sure I'm answering the question correctly, Tom, which is the system will begin to populate with data on its own, let's say. So you decide you're going to do business with us. We get you set up. We deploy a tracking script to your site. We begin to collect information related to prospect activities. We begin to sort of go through that process. So that data begins to accumulate, let's say, right? If you're an existing customer, you've already got it. But if you're starting from scratch, the data begins to accumulate. And then what will happen is, correct the second part of your question, right? We will then automatically adjust scoring based on activity. So the more we learn, the better and more accurate we become. But out of the gate, we have this sort of data model building phase that allows us to get to a level of confidence that what we're doing is actually producing results that are within the realm of accurate, that you can begin to work immediately, right? So happy to get further into that in terms of the actual operational steps to get up and running. But great question, and definitely appreciate the question there as well. So I've got a couple more here, and I'm going to probably end up giving everybody a little bit of time back today. I think it's something we can all use, because I wanted to, one, sort of hit the high level of this, which I think I've done, sort of stimulate some thinking and some good questions, which we've also done as well, and to just make this sort of the beginning of the conversation. And the beginning of the conversation can be, hey, I don't know if this is right for me. Hey, I don't understand what the heck you're talking about. I'm really curious about this particular angle of it. All of these things are great follow-up conversations for us to have, so definitely be very interested in having any of those. Got another good question here from Susan, which is about using the both scoring models together. Can you use sort of the traditional point-based model with the predictive score? The answer is yes. Kind of how we're set up in our system and in our product, you can have lots of different lead profiles and do lots of different stuff on that. So there's not just sort of this one overall lead score. What you'll find, though, as you begin to look at that, and we've done this with some early deployments of predictive lead scoring, is you can sort of run a report and you can say, hey, here's what my traditional point-based model found, and here's what your model found. And the stuff that's easy to explain is the stuff where we both score high or we both score low, right? The questions sort of begin to generate when you have a situation where the traditional model, let's say, scores high and the predictive model scores low, or vice versa, right? The traditional model scores low and the predictive scores high. And then you got to kind of get under the covers a little bit and see where maybe are there some assumptions made in the traditional model, maybe where are there some thresholds that are set in terms of the difference between a marketing qualified lead and a sales qualified lead, and we kind of get into it that way. So I think that if you're interested in seeing the value of lead scoring, I think it's pretty easy just to start this way. I think if you spend a lot of time and effort and energy into building your sort of point-based model, that we can definitely work through those sort of middle scenarios, right? Whereas the scores may be a little different in terms of how the models are coming together. But definitely an excellent question. Okay. Again, I'll continue to take good questions from the audience here. If anybody else has any others, or anybody who has already asked one, A, thank you, and B, if I haven't directly answered it, or if you think I haven't given the best details, I'm happy to kind of go at it again. I'll go ahead and sort of finish off here with my final slide, which has my contact information in it as well. One, thank you again, everybody, for their time. I'm going to give everybody about 20 minutes back today, and if, again, this is on your mind and you want to take the next 20 minutes and talk about it directly with me, here's my contact information. I'm happy to jump on the phone, talk about it a little bit, how it can work for you, how it can work for your company, and then we'll just sort of go with it from there. But like I said, we will be recording, or we have recorded this, and we'll follow up with the actual recording, so I encourage you to share that out there, and look forward to continuing the conversation with everyone. So thanks so much for the time today, and we appreciate all the great thoughts. Thanks.